I love mechs. As a kid, I turned on Toonami one day and Gundam Wing was on. And it was over. I was changed forever. The idea of piloting a combat suit set my mind ablaze. Big, small, real, super, it doesn't matter. It's all fucking cool. The immense human spirit, and beating overwhelming odds by sheer willpower alone. Oh, and a big giant robot. Changeable Guardian Estique by Catway Games was released August 2026 on all major platforms after a Famicom and NES physical-only release in late 2024. It has a ton of pedigree, with former Compile staffers on production, as well as Eureka and Namco alum Shinji Hosoe, among others, doing its music. It's a pretty great throwback, making use of its limitations quite well. I'll go into more detail with how I feel about the game's presentation and simple scoring system during the run. I purchased it on Steam, and the package is pretty solid for a $16 price tag. Both the Famicom and NES versions are included, as well as an unlockable prototype version. An amazing gallery mode is present as well, with decent options and controller support. It's most certainly recommended, so let's get into the run. Alright guys, so this is take 5 of this fucking thing, because I forgot that I reset at the beginning of it. So I'd started talking, and forgot that I'd reset. So we're going to try 5th time's a charm. I keep getting phone calls and text messages and interrupted, so we'll see how well this goes. So if you're looking for just a straight letter grade here, or not a letter grade, but a number grade, I'm guessing I would give it probably like a 7. It's pretty good. It's definitely worth your time. It's got a little bit of scoring depth into it, which I'll go into here in a minute. But 7 stages, I believe, 6, 7 stages. But let me explain how it works. Okay, so you have 2 forms, 2 buttons, 2 forms. One button is your shot, and the other one is a form change button. You have your fighter, which can run into terrain and is overall just weaker. And then you have your mech, which is invulnerable to terrain and a little bit stronger. The biggest difference between them is not just like their hitbox size, but also their specials. So this fighter's special shoots out a lot of bullets. Like the fire rate gets higher and they do more damage. And every person you kill in that mode gives you 500 points. The mech, however, has like an energy punch that he does that gives whoever you kill 1,000 points, but it's a lot more narrow. But there's like a way you can cheese it, kind of. You can, for like a second, whenever you first trigger it, you're not only invulnerable, but anybody you kill will give you that 1,000 points. So especially like right here, anything, even anything I'm not hitting with the energy wave will give me 1,000 points. And that's a way to kind of cheese the scoring system here. You'll see little things floating around. The little cat guys appear every 80,000 points, and they give you health and more special to use, which are those little bullet things down at the bottom in the middle of the screen. You have a health bar, no lives, health bar, and there's 2 different kinds of shots. There's a W shot, which is more like a wide shot, and then one that says B, I think. I think it says B, and it's a bit shot is what it's called. So your shots are less powerful, but you have like a protecting bit around you. It does come in handy, but I seem to stick with the wide shot a little bit more just because it's stronger. And the bit shot, you seem to almost have to use your bit to help you kill certain enemies because it just takes so long to kill them with the bit shot. A lot of your score is going to be coming from using your special on enemies, and also killing like big long lines of enemies like Gradius. If you kill them, you get points at the end of that. And also speed killing bosses. So the 2 main parts that you're going to be getting score from is going to be from, using your special as the mech and speed killing bosses. So I know that there's a guy on, excuse me, Shmup Junkies forum yesterday that cleared and got probably, I guess, about I clear with like 1.28 or something, I believe, million, and he cleared with like 1.3 or 1.32. And I asked him like kind of what he did, and he was like, I don't know, I just played. And so it's like, okay, so he probably just played more consistently or better than me, or maybe there was a part, because I know towards the end with the final boss has some kind of cheap-ish attacks that you don't know that you can kind of defeat. And so, you can kind of get, especially if you take the wrong weapon into it, it will just completely fuck you up. There's been so many runs on this where I've gotten to the end, I've gotten to that baby boss and died because the little homing option worm guys got me. There is a story here, and one of the big controversies of this game, I guess if you'd call it that, is that they, when localizing the game for the NES, they changed a lot of the story to almost like lampoon how that happened a lot back in the 80s and the 90s, but it's not done well. It's not even that it's not done well, it's annoying because you know that you're not getting the story from the NES version, which is like two girls save the world in their mech or whatever. And, it's meant to lampoon that very idea, but then it's falling into that same trap of that idea that it's meaning to make fun of. So it ends up being this joke that's like well-meaning, but at the same time extremely misguided. So I would definitely stick with if you want the full, unaltered developer mint experience, I would definitely stick with the Famicom version, which is included. All versions are included, including a prototype version that you get for clearing the game. So I haven't played it. I'm kind of ready to move on to other things, but I definitely would recommend this as to anyone, really. I think that it's certainly worth your time. I'm not a big fan of throwbacks. I think that if you're making something like now, like limitations are super cool. Limitations are needed. Not complaining about that. There's a lot of times when I'm making music or making a video, And I'm like, I have everything, especially in modern technology, everything's available at your fingertips. And you have to kind of sit yourself down and be like, I'm going to use these 3 or 4 things instead. I'm going to limit myself and be a little smart about what I'm going to do. One of the great things about the bit special is whenever you do use your special, or the bit weapon, whenever you do use your special, it like spins twice as fast, so you can cancel bullets out or protect yourself a lot more, because there are a lot of like tight passages. God, I can't talk today. Later on in the game, that are where it certainly comes in handy. But with what I was talking about, I'm sorry I got off track. I see a lot of games that could be made. They're limiting themselves by having to be. Eartheon was, and this is how I feel about Eartheon. Eartheon could have been released for, like not had to have that special collector's Sega Genesis release, which I know is a lot of the reason why it became popular, is because people were like, that's a new Sega Genesis game. But then you see like the EXA version, and it's like, that's kind of what could have been. I know that it's made by different people, and the devs are different and all this other stuff, but these limitations are kind of unwarranted in a way. I know that I'm saying this real fucked up and it sounds real shitty, like most of the things I say, but like, could you imagine what that would be like if it didn't have to be on a Sega Genesis, right? Like, if it still had the same style and the kind of like not Hollow Knight, but Shovel Knight. Shovel Knight was like NES styled. Or, God, another one of my favorite games from earlier this year, Bat Boy. Bat Boy was fucking amazing. Like, it's an NES styled platformer, but it's not on an NES, so it can do more than just being on the NES. And it was fucking awesome. Like, I'd highly recommend that game to all of you guys. Like, I actually thought about covering it on the channel because I love that game so much. And but in a way, I think that's also how a lot of these companies know that their retro throwback won't sell as much unless they appeal to a collector mindset, right? Unless it's like, okay, so, we can make Eartheon sell 10 times better if we're like, hey, you can get it for your Sega Genesis, and it's not just a Steam release or a PS4 release, right? People are going to be more excited about that because people, I'm one of them, that have these retro consoles, are like, hell yeah, cool, a new retro game for my Sega Genesis. And I used to really love that idea, and I guess the more I think about it, and the more I think about it from like a business standpoint, or I'm sorry, a creative standpoint and a business standpoint, I find it a little shady, I guess. I find it forced. I definitely find it forced. Like, could you imagine if M2 was like, hey, so we made a version of, I don't know, we made Raystorm 2, but it's only on the NES, Like, we could have made it, for modern whatever, but we didn't. We chose to make it on the NES, and it has the same limitations and same disadvantages of being on, not the NES, but the PlayStation, right? And I don't know, it feels strange. Like I might make a whole video on this topic because I'm not getting out my words properly here, but hopefully you guys are kind of hearing what I'm saying when it comes to what I'm talking about, because there's like I'd said in the intro, there's definitely some pedigree here. There's definitely a lot of talent in this game. This game is pretty great. But I would have loved to have seen what they would have done with like the guys that did Zelen Force, which was a game that came out on the PC a couple years ago, and it's NES styled and very compile like, and it's got the same limitations of an NES game, but it's also a fucking PC game, so it doesn't have to have the sprite flicker. It doesn't have to have all the stuff that it kind of loses from being an older game. It can push those limits a little bit. And even they're making like an arcade version or a SNES version of that game, which looks pretty cool. But they're not having to limit themselves down to like a file size because they're making an actual cart or they're making an actual PCB. God, I can't talk or think today, I guess. But yeah, this reminds me a lot of Zombie Nation for some reason. I know that has that critique has come up, I think, in somewhere I've read or somebody I was talking to about this. Something about the way the backgrounds look. If it was destructible, it would be like if you showed me a picture of this and Samurai Zombie Nation right next to each other, I would be like, I can't tell the difference. So this is one of the areas where you would kind of spam your projectiles a little bit more if you were smart. These guys drop these little like weird satellite things that you can blow up with your like rocket punch and get a ton of points on. I think that's how a lot of people are scoring, because most of the scores that are released for this, unless you've just spent a ton of time with it, seem to be very much around the same, like give or take area. So, I think there's just a couple people with some knowledge on how to, kind of milk certain sections of this. And there's even, there also are multiple difficulty modes. I know there's a hard above this, and then one called God of Game, and I'm good on that. That's also kind of another thing, is the way I feel about difficulty modes. So I know that I'm super glad they exist, but like I would rather play a normal mode, right? Like a normal mode, instead of like finding, like going up to hard, because Battle Traverse is this way, right? Where normal mode is until the second half of the game very breezy. It's very like doable, and I could step up to hard and have it just be immediately hard, or you could kind of explore normal mode, right? And I know that this topic is extremely dense for, this 20-minute or 30-minute, video we have here. These guys almost killed me. I just, for some reason, could not get like what they were. I knew what they were doing, but I would freak out every time they come on screen. So another really good thing, and another huge difference between fighter and mech mode, is when you're hurt, your shield will come back to a certain point, kind of like Eartheon. That's even without picking up any of the cat guys. So what you do is you get hurt, right? And if you have a chance where you can, you switch into mech mode, because getting your health up, your health only increases in fighter mode after 40 seconds. 40 seconds is a fucking eternity in a shooter. And so what you want to do is you want to switch to mech mode, and then it only takes 10 seconds for the heal up to start. So, yeah, 40 seconds is like double the entire level of Batrider. And so, like, I couldn't imagine having to wait 40 seconds for fucking, something I needed, like, right then, right? I don't know why I went into mech mode during that part, because there's, like, no fucking room at all. I think I was trying to, like, kind of cheese them with my special so I wouldn't take damage, because you're invincible during like the first part of your special there. All right. Approaching the end, we have this weird kind of fleshy life force area. These guys are great for milking because using your like punch special on them just absolutely fucking murders them and all of their projectiles they're spitting out. And so if I was smart, I would have used it there, but I was kind of afraid I wouldn't clear. I was afraid that I would get here and the fucking baby would kill me again. And I would have got mad, man, because I had made it to this baby like 4 or 5 different times. And like every time I would almost kill it. Like, almost kill the damn baby. And then, something would happen. I'd fuck it up. I'd make a wrong move, So we're killing some popcorn here. Because that's what it looks like. It looks like popcorn. And this has to be, like, influenced by, like, this whole section has to be influenced by Life Force or R-Type. Just because of how it is. But, yeah, so this will be the first horizontal game that I'm sharing on my YouTube channel, and that feels strange because I don't usually play a whole lot of horizontal games, but I think I'm going to start here soon because I'm still working on that. I finally got 30 million in Battle Traverse, which I'm super proud of. So I was like, okay, so that right there is fucking bullshit. If the boss is dead, you should not take a hit. That should be a thing that doesn't happen. That reminds me of some fucking Chorin Shaw shit. Is if the boss is dying, if I have reached a point where I am no longer in combat and I take a hit afterwards, if I died there, man, I would have never played this fucking game again. Like, are you kidding me? So be careful of things like that, man. The shit ain't over until it takes control away from you. But that definitely knocks some points down. But, when it comes to reviews, I'm not 100% comfortable reviewing stuff. But I do like the idea of sharing technical knowledge. I think that's why, we do things like this. Is not just personal knowledge, but also technical knowledge, Like, there's been a lot of players I've talked to out there where, everybody knows something different. Even people that have been playing for years, and a new guy comes up and says, I figured this out. And they're like, whoa, I didn't even know that. That's one of the most important parts of this communication. So, all right, guys. I'm going to cut the staff roll short early. So, yeah, thank you for sticking around. Sorry for the weird ramble this morning. And hope you guys have a great day. See you later.